Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really dense, highly academic, but honestly, absolutely fascinating piece of speculative analysis by Benoit Noël-Lapierre. It's called Metathesis as Meta-Theoretical Triangulation, a speculative realist prognosis of the Russo-American Chinese Strategic Object System in 2030. Yeah, I know, that title is a total mouthful, but trust me, the concepts inside are just mind-blowing. The author is essentially giving us a radical new blueprint for the world order in 2030, which is really just around the corner. So, what does this world order actually look like in 2030? Well, according to the speculative realist model, you can pretty much toss out the traditional idea of a 19th century Great Game or a 20th century Cold War. Those days are gone. Traditional borders and old school military might, they're being entirely replaced by this massive, globally entangled, highly interdependent machine. Okay, let's dive into this. The whole paper hinges on this core concept called metathesis. Now, to decode that academic jargon a bit, the author is describing a fundamental shift in how global power actually works. We're moving away from territorial power, occupying physical land with troops, and shifting toward what they call triangulated, flow-based power. Basically, in 2030, whoever manages the massive flows of data, AI algorithms, raw resources, and robotic labor, well, they hold all the cards. It's all about vertical integration and managing networks, not just guarding borders. Here is our agenda for today. We'll cover the 2030 global machine, the USA's rule with algorithms and currency, China as the robotic provisioner, Russia as the resource router, Africa as the industrial anchor, and we'll wrap up with the concept of a tense quantum peace. Section 1. The 2030 Global Machine and the New Geopolitics. This meta-theoretical framework asks us to completely reimagine geopolitics. We kind of have to stop picturing a flat map of competing countries and instead start looking at the world like a giant interconnected circuit board. The old rules of the past were static, right? It was all about drawing borders and conquering territory. But the 2030 reality of metathesis is totally dynamic. It defines sovereignty purely by the capacity to manage flows of information, capital, and goods. We're talking about non-human actors, like autonomous AI agents, quantum cryptographic networks, and robotic workforces becoming the primary drivers of the whole system. Section 2, USA, Algorithms and Currency, the Brain and Wallet. There is this absolutely incredible quote from the paper that hits the nail on the head. The traditional distinction between the Pentagon and Wall Street has collapsed into a singular military AI currency flux. In this model, the U.S. effectively acts as the brain and the wallet of the global circuit. The military and the financial sector aren't really separate entities anymore. They're fused together by artificial intelligence. Now, what's really interesting about this is how American power becomes entirely liquid. The U.S. doesn't need to physically occupy space, it just optimizes it. By 2030, the U.S. is projected to contribute smart currency, which means digital dollars managed by predictive AI that can literally adjust to global tremors before they even hit the physical markets. It also brings algorithmic military AI focused on predictive warfare, speed, and sensor fusion rather than just heavy hardware. And it exports these self-contained, heavily automated ecosystems called secure financial smart cities. Section 3. China, the robotic provisioner. The hands of the system. Just wrap your head around the sheer scale of this transition. The author predicts that by 2030, China's manufacturing sector will be 90% automated. 90%! Using their Robot Plus initiative, China is moving away from being a human-powered world's workshop and becoming the world's fully automated provider. So if the US is the brain and wallet, the source describes China as the hands of the machine. China's main contribution to the 2030 world order is physical provisioning. They are actively exporting entire automated service packages to the global south. We're talking humanoid robotic labor, AI management software, and 6G infrastructure. The factory isn't just a physical building anymore. It's an exported, Chinese-owned automated service. Basically, a smart economy in a box. Section 4. Russia, the resource router. The veins of the machine. And this brilliantly illustrates Russia's expected transformation. The paper states, Russia in 2030 will be powerful only if it becomes a router, not merely a reservoir, a triangulating civilizational logistic state. That's a super crucial distinction. A reservoir just sits there storing resources, but a router actively governs their movement. In this model, Russia acts as the veins of the machine, strategically directing all the vital materials. According to the analysis, Russia uses what the author calls infrastructural gravity. Even if they face political isolation, their material indispensability doesn't change. They're slated to contribute quantum AI-secured resource distribution for critical flows like hydrocarbons, rare earth minerals, fertilizer, grain, and nuclear tech. By mastering Arctic logistics and using AI grid management to sanction-proof themselves, Russia makes itself the indispensable third force. It becomes literally impossible for the other powers to bypass them without crashing their own systems. Section 5. Africa, the industrial anchor, or the corporeal floor. Okay, so the author uses a really dense, highly academic phrase here, the manufactural corporeal floor. To translate that out of academia, it means Africa serves as the literal foundation, the physical body or substrate that this entire massive global building rests on. Without Africa, the whole triangulated system just collapses. The African continent has the one thing the other poles desperately need: tremendous demographic vitality and young labor. In this 2030 framework, Africa becomes the site of the Great Reshoring. But it's not a passive player here. African nations actually negotiate this setup as a strategic arbitrage field. They're blending Chinese robotic hardware, Russian energy routing, and U.S. capital to rapidly accelerate their own tech-saturated industrialization. It creates this fascinating hybrid labor force of human oversight and robotic agents. Section 6. A tense quantum peace and tense interdependence. So, the crucial point we arrive at is this concept of quantum peace. If you know quantum physics, you know things can exist in a superposition, two opposing states at the exact same time. Well, in 2030 geopolitics, rivalry and dependency coexist exactly like that. Make no mistake, these superpowers do not love each other. There's constant friction. But they are so deeply, structurally entangled in this global machine that total conflict, like World War III, is totally unmanageable. If one pole launches a massive attack, they instantly wipe out their own supply chains and energy grids. Conflict is permanently superposed with exchange. Let's move to how this all builds together into what the author calls the Quaternos Circuit Blueprint. Step 1, the US writes the predictive military software and provides the digital financing. Step 2, China supplies the physical robotic labor and automation. Step 3, Russia securely routes the necessary energy and raw materials. And step 4, Africa anchors the whole thing with its demographic soil and human oversight. It all operates as one single, totally entangled entity. Which leaves us with a pretty massive final thought. In a world where power isn't grabbed, but instead calculated, automated, and triangulated, is this quantum peace our ultimate salvation from global war? Or is it just a highly complex ticking clock, waiting for one single fatal algorithmic error? It is a deeply fragile, interdependent future, and the realist perspective says we absolutely have to understand the machine before we can survive it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.